Captain Lee Jinho checked his ship's sensors one more time. The patrol route around the Vega system had been quiet for 3 months. Too quiet. His small ship, the Harmony, was built for scouting, not fighting. Its job was simple: watch for alien activity and report back to Earth. "Everything looks normal, Captain," said his communications officer. "No strange signals, no unknown ships." Jinho nodded, but something felt wrong. In his 15 years with the Earth Defense Corps, he had learned to trust his feelings. The empty space around them seemed to be waiting for something. Then the sensors screamed, "Contact! Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace!" The officer's voice cracked with fear. They're huge, sir!" Through the main screen, Jinho saw them. 5 massive ships, each one 10 times bigger than his patrol vessel. They were dark gray, covered in strange symbols that seemed to move in the light. The ships looked like they were built to crush things. "Send. Emergency beacon to Earth Command," Jinho ordered. "Tell them we have first contact with unknown aliens, hostile intent suspected." But before his officer could send the message, something invisible hit the Harmony. The ship shook like a toy in a giant's hand. The metal walls began to bend inward. Jinho felt his body pressed down into his chair by a force he couldn't see. "Gravity weapons," he whispered. He had read about this in theoretical reports, but no human had ever seen it used. The aliens were crushing his ship with artificial gravity. The pressure increased. His crew cried out in pain as the ship folded around them like paper. Jinho tried to reach the emergency controls, but his arms felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. The gravity was getting stronger and stronger. His last thought before everything went black was about Earth. These aliens, whoever they were, had weapons that could destroy anything, and now they knew where to find humanity. When Jinho woke up, he was lying on a metal floor. The room was small and gray, with walls that hummed softly. He tried to sit up, but his body felt strange, heavy. It took him a moment to realize the gravity here was stronger than Earth's, maybe 1.5 times stronger. A door opened with a soft hiss. 3 figures walked in, and Jinho got his first. Look at the aliens who had captured him. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their bodies were thin, almost fragile-looking, but they wore dark metal suits that covered most of their bodies. The suits looked like armor, but Jinho noticed they moved with a mechanical rhythm. The aliens needed the suits to move normally. The one in front spoke in perfect English. "I am War Marshal Thexmore of the Vorlak Empire. You are now our prisoner." Jinho struggled to his feet, fighting against the heavy gravity. "Captain Lee Jinho, Earth Defense Corps. I demand to know why you attacked my ship." Thexmore made a sound that might have been laughter. "You demand? You are in no position to demand anything human. We know about your species. We know about your planet. Soon, we will know everything." "Earth will never surrender to you," Jinho said. "They will," Thexmore replied. "Every species says that at first. The Kalari said it. The Morpheus Collective said it. The Tanian Republic said it. They all surrendered when they saw what we could do to their people." The War Marshal gestured to one of his officers. "Increase gravity to 2 times Earth standard." Jinho felt the change immediately. The invisible force pressed down on him like a giant hand. His knees bent, and he had to fight to stay standing. The aliens watched him carefully, waiting for him to fall. But Jinho had spent years training in high-gravity chambers. Every soldier in the Earth Defense Corps did. They trained at 2G, sometimes 3G, to prepare for different planet conditions. His body was ready for this. Instead of falling, Jinho dropped to the floor and began doing push-ups. 1, he counted out loud. 2, 3. The aliens stepped back in surprise. Thexmore's 4 eyes went wide. "What are you doing?" "Getting some exercise," Jinho replied, continuing his push-ups. "Is that all your gravity machine can do?" "My morning workout is usually at 2.5G. He wasn't lying. Every Earth soldier trained in gravity chambers that could go up to 3G. They had to be ready to fight on heavy worlds, to wear powered armor, to survive in conditions that would kill normal humans. Impossible, whispered one of the other. Aliens. No organic being should be able to move freely at double gravity. Their bones should break, their hearts should stop. But Jinho kept exercising. After 20 push-ups, he stood up and began doing jumping jacks. The heavy gravity made everything harder, but not impossible. His muscles burned, but he had felt worse during training. Thexmore watched in silence for a long moment. Then he spoke into a communication device on his wrist. Science Division. This is War Marshal Thexmore. I need a research team immediately. We have encountered something unusual. What's so unusual about humans being stronger than you expected? Jinho asked, finishing his jumping jacks. Because, Thexmore said slowly, we have conquered 17 star systems. We have broken the will of 100 different species. Our gravity weapons have crushed the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to move at double gravity except our own people in power suits. Jinho smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Maybe you've been picking on the wrong species. Perhaps, Thexmore said, but that makes you even more valuable to us. You see, we need to understand how to break every type of resistance we encounter. If humans are truly different, then we need to learn exactly how different. The War Marshal turned to leave, then stopped. I should warn you, Captain. Our scientists are very thorough. They will test you in ways you cannot imagine. They will find your breaking point no matter how high it might be. Good luck with that, Jinho replied. After the aliens left, Jinho sat on the small metal bench in his cell. The gravity was still at double Earth standard, but he was getting used to it. His body was already adapting, just like it had been trained to do. He thought about his crew, probably dead when the Harmony was crushed. He thought about Earth, and how long it would take for his emergency beacon to reach them. He thought about these Vorlak aliens and their gravity weapons. Most of all, he thought about what Thexmore had said. 17 star systems conquered, 100 species broken. But they had never met humans before. They didn't know what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. They didn't understand that sometimes when you try to break something, you just make it stronger. Jinho began planning. If these aliens wanted to test his limits, he would let them. But he would make sure they learned something they weren't expecting. He would show them that humans don't break. They adapt. 3 days passed before the scientists arrived. Jinho had used the time well. He exercised constantly in the double gravity, doing push-ups, sit-ups, and running in place. His body was getting stronger. The gravity that was supposed to crush him was making him tougher. When the door opened, 5 aliens walked in. They wore white versions of the metal suits, and they carried strange devices that beeped and flashed. The one in front was smaller than War Marshal Thexmore, but moved with the confidence of someone important. I am Chief Researcher Vextal, the alien said. I have come to study you. I'm honored, Jinho replied, not stopping his exercise routine. Vextal pointed one of his devices at Jinho. It made several loud beeps. Fascinating. Your bone density has increased by 12% in 3 days. Your muscle mass has grown by 8%. Your heart rate is completely normal despite the high-gravity environment. Is that supposed to surprise me? Jinho asked. Yes, Vextal said simply. Every other species we have studied shows immediate organ failure at double gravity. Their bones break. Their blood vessels burst. They die within hours. Jinho finally stopped exercising and looked at the scientist. Maybe you've been studying the wrong species. Perhaps, Vextal agreed. That is why we must understand you completely. Guards, increase gravity to 3 times Earth standard. The change hit Jinho like a truck. His knees buckled and he had to grab the wall to stay upright. 3G was at the edge of his training. He could handle it, but it wasn't easy anymore. The aliens watched as he struggled to stand straight. Vextal made notes on his device. Interesting. You are experiencing difficulty, but you have not collapsed. Most beings would be unconscious by now. Jinho took slow, careful breaths. In training, they had taught him how to breathe in high gravity, how to keep blood flowing to his brain, how to move efficiently when every step was a challenge. "How long are you planning to keep me at this level?" he asked. "As long as it takes to understand your limits," Vextal replied. "Tell me, human, what is the highest gravity your species can survive?" "I don't know," Jinho said honestly. "We've never tested to failure." This was true. Earth's military trained soldiers up to 3G, but they had never tried to find the absolute limit. There had never been a need to know how much gravity would actually kill a human. Vextal made more notes. "We will discover this together. Science Division, begin continuous monitoring. I want to know everything about how this creature's body responds to gravitational stress." The next few hours were the hardest of Jinho's life. Moving at 3G was like carrying two other people on his back. Every step took enormous effort. His muscles burned constantly. But he refused to give up. He thought about home while he struggled against the crushing force. Earth was peaceful now, but it wouldn't stay that way if these aliens decided to invade. His home planet had 4 billion people who had never seen war with aliens. They weren't ready for enemies who could crush ships with gravity weapons. "Your species concerns me," Vextal said during one of his examinations. "We have studied your radio transmissions. Your people seem soft. They spend their time on art, music, entertainment. Yet you are proving remarkably difficult to break." "You're making the same mistake a lot of people make," Jinho replied. "You think peaceful means weak. You think soft means fragile." "Does it not?" "No," Jinho said firmly. "Humans choose to be peaceful. But when we have to fight, we're very good at it. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know how to survive things that should kill us." While Jinho was being studied, something important was happening far away. On Earth, Admiral Kim Dae-ho sat in a conference room reading the emergency message that had finally reached home. "First, contact with hostile aliens," the Admiral said to the people around the table. "Captain Lee Jinho's ship was destroyed 3 weeks ago near Vega. We have to assume he's dead." Dr. Park Mina, Earth's top expert on alien life, shook her head. "If they destroyed his ship immediately, why haven't they attacked Earth? Maybe they took prisoners." "Impossible," said General Harrison. "The message said they used gravity weapons. Nothing could survive that kind of attack. Unless," said Engineer Choi Woo-jin quietly, "they wanted someone alive to study." Admiral Kim Dae-ho looked at the engineer. "What do you mean?" "Think about it," Woo-jin explained. "If I were an alien military commander meeting a new species, I would want to capture some of them. Learn about their technology, their biology, their weaknesses. A quick kill tells you nothing." Dr. Park Mina nodded slowly. "That makes sense. And if they did capture someone, it would be Jinho. He's tough enough to survive things that would kill most people." "Even if he's alive, how could we possibly rescue him?" the Admiral asked. "We don't even know where their ship is." Woo-jin smiled. "Actually, we do. I've been tracking gravitational waves. There's a massive distortion in space near Vega. Something big is sitting there using enormous amounts of energy to manipulate gravity." "You want to send a rescue mission into enemy territory against unknown technology?" General Harrison asked. "I want to send the right kind of rescue mission," Dr. Park Mina said. "Woo-jin, what's the status on the experimental gravity drive ships?" The engineer checked his notes. "We have 3 prototypes. They're untested in combat, but they can handle gravitational fields that would crush normal ships." Admiral Kim Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "Prepare the prototypes. We're going to get our people back." Back on the Vorlak ship, Jinho was discovering something interesting about his body. After a full day at 3G, walking was getting easier. Not easy, but easier. His muscles were adapting faster than anyone expected. Vextal was excited by the readings his instruments showed. Remarkable! Your cellular structure is actually changing. Your bones are becoming denser. Your muscle fibers are multiplying. It's as if your species was designed to adapt to extreme conditions. Maybe we were, Jinho said. Earth had many different environments. Mountains where the air was thin, deep oceans where the pressure could crush submarines, deserts hot enough to kill, frozen wastelands where nothing should survive. Humans lived in all of these places. Maybe that's why they could handle things other species couldn't. I want to try 4 times Earth gravity, Vextal announced. War Marshal Thexmore, who had been watching the experiments, spoke up. Is that wise? We need him alive for information. He won't die, Vextal said confidently. Look at these readings. His body is not just surviving the stress, it's using the stress to become stronger. When the gravity increased to 4G, Jinho collapsed. The force was too much. He lay on the floor, barely able to breathe, his vision going dark around the edges. But he didn't pass out. And after 10 minutes, he managed to get back on his hands and knees. After an hour, he was sitting up. After 3 hours, he was standing. Impossible, breathed one of Vextal's assistants. No organic being should be able to adapt that quickly. Humans aren't like other species, Jinho gasped. We don't just survive, we overcome. Vextal made a decision that would change everything. Contact the science directorate. Tell them to prepare for extended experiments. We're going to find this creature's absolute limits. And then, asked Thexmore. Then we're going to learn how to break every human in their space, Vextal replied. Starting with their colonies. Jinho heard this, and something cold settled in his stomach. It wasn't fear for himself. It was fear for all the innocent people on human worlds who had no idea what was coming for them. He had to escape. He had to warn Earth. And he had to find a way to turn these aliens' greatest weapon against them. The gravity experiments were making him stronger, but they were also teaching him about Vorlac technology. Every day, he learned more about how their gravity systems worked. Every day, he saw new weaknesses in their armor and equipment. The aliens thought they were studying him. They didn't realize he was studying them right back. 2 weeks had passed since the gravity experiments began. Jinho's body had changed in ways that amazed even him. His muscles were harder than steel. His bones were denser than rock. At 4G, he could now walk around almost normally. The force, that should have killed him, was making him into something beyond ordinary human limits. Vextal was fascinated, but also worried. Your adaptation rate is accelerating, the scientist told him during one of the daily examinations. We increased gravity to 5 times Earth standard yesterday, and you're already adjusting. Jinho nodded. 5G had been brutal at first. He had spent the first few hours crawling on the floor, fighting to breathe, but now he was doing sit-ups again. His body refused to give up. I need to understand how this is possible, Vextal continued. Your species should not be able to survive these conditions. What makes humans different? We come from a dangerous world, Jinho explained. Earth has earthquakes, storms, floods, fires. Humans had to be tough to survive. The weak ones died out millions of years ago. This was only part of the truth. Jinho was beginning to understand that something special was happening to his body. The constant high gravity wasn't just making him stronger. It was awakening something in his genetics, something that had been sleeping for thousands of years. That afternoon, the guards brought him a surprise. 2 more prisoners were pushed into his cell. Jinho recognized them immediately as human. The first was a woman in a torn military uniform. Kang Sujin, Marine Corps, she said weakly. Captured during the raid on New Seoul Colony. The second was a man in civilian clothes. Yoon Taemin, merchant captain. They took my ship while I was delivering supplies to the outer worlds. Both of them were barely able to stand in the cell's gravity. Normal humans weren't trained for high-G conditions the way military officers were. At 2.5G, they were in serious trouble. "How long have you been here?" Jinho asked. 3 days, Sujin gasped. "They've been testing us, trying to see how much we can take before we break." Jinho helped them sit down. "Listen to me carefully. I'm going to teach you how to survive this." Over the next few hours, Jinho shared everything he knew about high-gravity survival. How to breathe in shallow, quick breaths to keep oxygen flowing to the brain. How to move efficiently to save energy. How to exercise specific muscles to prevent them from weakening under the constant pressure. "The key is not to fight the gravity," he explained. "Accept it. Let your body adapt to it. Humans are good at adapting." "Easy for you to say," Taemin groaned. "You're military trained. We're just ordinary people." "No," Jinho said firmly. "There's no such thing as ordinary humans. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. From people who lived through ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters that should have killed our entire species. That strength is still in you. You just have to wake it up." While Jinho worked with the other prisoners, he was also learning about the aliens. During the daily examinations, he listened carefully to everything Vextal and his assistants said. He watched how their equipment worked. He studied their power suits. The Vorlak, he realized, had a serious weakness. They had evolved on a low-gravity world. Their natural bodies were fragile. They needed mechanical suits to function in normal gravity, and the suits had limits. "Why do your people need those machines to move around?" Jinho asked Vextal during one examination. "Our home world has only 1/3 the gravity of most habitable planets," the scientist explained. "We developed technology to compensate for our physical limitations." "What happens if the suits malfunction?" Vextal looked uncomfortable. "That is not a concern. Our technology is very reliable." But Jinho noticed that the scientist didn't actually answer the question. He also noticed that the gravity generators in his cell had control panels that the guards checked every few hours. The Vorlak were very careful about their gravity technology, which meant it probably had weaknesses they were worried about. After a week with the other prisoners, Jinho saw real improvement in their condition. Sujin was able to walk around the cell without falling. Taemin could do basic exercises. Their bodies were adapting, just like his had. "I don't understand it," Sujin said. "I feel stronger than I did before I was captured. How is that possible?" "Because that's what humans do," Jinho replied. "We don't just survive bad situations, we use them to become better." Vextal had noticed the improvement, too. "Interesting," he said during the next examination. "All 3 human subjects are showing enhanced physical capabilities. It appears that your adaptation response can be triggered in normal humans, not just military specimens." "You sound surprised," Jinho said. "I am. We have tested this theory with other species. Kalari subjects died within days of high-gravity exposure. Morpheus collective prisoners lasted less than a week. Tannian Republic. Soldiers survived longer, but they never adapted. They only weakened until they died." "Maybe," Jinho suggested, "you've been testing the wrong species." That evening, after the scientists left, Jinho shared his observations with Sujin and Taemin. "Their suits are their weak point," he explained quietly. "The Vorlak can't function without them. If we could overload the gravity system somehow, their own equipment would trap them." "How?" asked Taemin. "We're prisoners. We don't have access to their technology." "Not directly," Jinho agreed. "But I've been watching. The gravity generators in this cell are connected to the main system. They have safety protocols to prevent overloads. But safety protocols can sometimes be turned into weapons if you know what you're doing." Sujin looked interested. "What kind of weapon?" "Think about it. These gravity systems are designed to crush enemy ships from a distance, but they're also designed to protect the Vorlak operators. The systems automatically adjust to make sure areas where Vorlak are present stay at safe gravity levels. So, if we could trick the system into thinking Vorlak were in a high-gravity area, Taemin began, the system would try to reduce the gravity. There, Jinho finished. Which would mean increasing it somewhere else to balance the energy load. That's incredibly dangerous, Sujin said. If we're wrong, we could kill ourselves. Jinho nodded. True. But if we do nothing, they're going to keep testing us until we die anyway. And eventually, they're going to attack human colonies with thousands of innocent people. The three humans sat in silence for a moment, thinking about families and friends who had no idea what was coming for them. What do you need us to do? Asked Sujin. Over the next several days, Jinho began preparing for his escape attempt. During exercise periods, he memorized the layout of the detention area. During examinations, he studied the Vorlak equipment more carefully. During conversations with Vextal, he gathered information about ship operations. The Vorlak scientist had become almost friendly, fascinated by human physiology. Your species is remarkable, Vextal told him. I have studied biology for 60 years, and I have never seen anything like your adaptation capabilities. What will you do with the information you're gathering? Jinho asked. We will use it to develop more effective methods for controlling human populations, Vextal said matter-of-factly. Every species has a breaking point. We simply need to find yours. And if we don't have one? Vextal looked surprised by the question. Every species has a breaking point. It is a law of biology. Maybe, Jinho said. Or maybe you just haven't met the right species yet. That night, as he lay on his metal bed under crushing gravity, Jinho made his final plans. Tomorrow, Vextal was planning to test him at 6 times Earth gravity. It would be the perfect opportunity. The aliens thought they were conducting experiments to find human weaknesses. They didn't realize they were creating their own worst enemy. Every day of torture was making Jinho stronger, smarter, and more determined to stop them. Tomorrow, he would show them what humans were truly capable of when pushed beyond their limits. The morning of the 6G test, War Marshal Thexmore received bad news from the Vorlak High Command. Human colonies were not surrendering as expected. Instead, they were organizing resistance. Ships were being built. Weapons were being prepared. Earth was getting ready for war. This is unacceptable, Thexmore told Vextal. We need to break human morale before they become a real threat. I want you to execute the human captain in a public broadcast. Show all human worlds what happens to those who resist the Vorlak Empire. Vextal looked unhappy. That would end my experiments. I am learning valuable information about human biology. You can study the other 2 prisoners, Thexmore replied. The execution will serve a greater purpose. We will slowly increase gravity until the human is crushed to death. Every human in their space will see that their strongest warrior could not resist our power. What gravity level do you want for the execution? 10 times Earth standard, Thexmore said. Nothing organic can survive that. Make sure every human world receives the broadcast signal. In his cell, Jinho was ready. Over. The past 3 weeks, he had been secretly working on the gravity generators during maintenance periods. The guards didn't pay attention to him during their equipment checks. They thought he was just another broken prisoner. But Jinho had been busy. Using pieces of metal from his bed frame and wire from the light fixtures, he had built a small device. It wouldn't look like much to a casual observer, but it was designed to interfere with the gravity system's safety protocols. Today we test you at 6 times Earth gravity, Vextal announced as he entered with his team. This will likely be your limit. No organic being has ever survived higher than this. We'll see, Jinho replied calmly. But instead of beginning the test, the scientists began setting up different equipment, cameras, recording devices, and communication arrays. Change of plans, Thexmore announced as he entered the cell. You are going to die today, human, but your death will serve a purpose. Every human in your space will watch you be crushed, and they will surrender to avoid the same fate. Jinho felt his heart rate increase, but not from fear, from excitement. This was exactly what he had been hoping for. A public broadcast meant the gravity systems would be pushed to their maximum levels, perfect for his plan. 10 times Earth gravity should be sufficient, Thexmore continued. Even your remarkable adaptation abilities cannot survive that level of force. The War Marshal was probably right. 10G was far beyond anything humans had ever tested. It should be enough to crush bones, stop hearts, and rupture every organ in the body. But Jinho's body wasn't normal human anymore. 3 weeks of constant high gravity had changed him into something new. Begin broadcast to all human colonies, Thexmore ordered. Across human space, emergency signals activated communication systems. On Earth, Admiral Kim Daeho watched in horror as the image of Jinho appeared on every screen. On Mars, in asteroid mining stations, on distant frontier worlds, humans saw their captured soldier about to be executed. Citizens of human space, Thexmore's voice said through the broadcast, observe the fate of those who resist the Vorlak Empire. Gravity increasing to 5 times Earth standard, Vextal announced. Jinho felt the familiar pressure, but his body handled it easily now. He stood straight, showing no sign of distress. Around the galaxy, humans watching the broadcast felt a spark of hope. Their soldier was not breaking. 6 times Earth standard. Still, Jinho remained standing. He even managed to smile at the camera. On Earth, Dr. Park Mina watched in amazement. "Look at him," she whispered. "He's not just surviving, he's getting stronger." 7 times Earth standard. Now Jinho had to work to remain upright. The force was enormous, like having 6 other people standing on his shoulders. But he didn't fall. Instead, he began to speak. "This is Captain Lee Jinho to all human forces," he said clearly. "I am alive. I am unbroken, and I have learned something important about our enemies." Thexmore snarled and ordered the gravity increased to 8G. Jinho dropped to one knee but kept talking. The Vorlak use gravity weapons because they're physically weak. Their bodies can't handle the forces they use against us. But we can. We're stronger than they know. 9 times Earth standard, Thexmore shouted. Jinho collapsed to the floor but somehow kept his head up to look at the camera. "Humans don't break," he gasped. "We adapt, we overcome. And we're coming. For you. 10 times Earth standard, maximum power." This was the moment Jinho had been waiting for. As the gravity systems reached their highest setting, he activated his hidden device. The small piece of technology sent a signal that confused the safety protocols, making the system think there were Vorlak in the high-gravity field. The result was immediate and catastrophic. The gravity generators, trying to protect their operators, began shifting energy loads throughout the ship, but the overloaded systems couldn't handle the redistribution. Feedback loops formed. Power surges cascaded through the gravity network. Instead of crushing Jinho at 10G, the generators began, creating wild fluctuations. Some areas of the ship suddenly experienced 0 gravity. Others jumped to 15 or 20G. The carefully controlled artificial gravity that kept the ship functioning became a chaotic storm of forces. Thexmore and his guards, caught in their mechanical suits in a shifting gravity field, were helpless. Their equipment couldn't compensate for the rapid changes. They fell, flailed helplessly, or were pinned against walls as their suits malfunctioned. But Jinho, adapted to high gravity and trained to function in changing conditions, was able to move. He stood up in the chaos and began releasing Sujin and Taemin from their restraints. "How?" gasped Sujin as gravity shifted around them. "Their own weapons," Jinho replied. "They built systems to protect themselves from gravity, but they made those systems too complicated. All it took was one small interference signal to turn their protection into a trap." Throughout the ship, alarms were screaming. Vorlak crew members, were trapped in their quarters as gravity fields shifted wildly. Emergency systems were failing. The mighty dreadnought that had conquered 17 star systems was being destroyed by its own primary weapon. Vextal, pinned to the floor by his malfunctioning suit, watched in horror as his greatest experiment turned into his greatest failure. "Impossible," he whispered. "The gravity should have killed you." "You made a mistake," Jinho told him, helping the other prisoners to their feet. "You assume that what kills other species would kill humans too. But humans are different. We don't just survive extreme conditions. We use them to become stronger." As if to prove his point, Jinho moved easily through the chaotic gravity fields that were crushing the Vorlak. His body, conditioned by weeks of torture, had become perfectly adapted to the kind of forces that were now tearing the ship apart. "Come on," he told Sujin and Taemin. "We need to find the bridge and stop this ship before it reaches human space." The three humans began making their way through corridors filled with helpless aliens. The Vorlak, so confident in their technological superiority, had never considered that their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. Behind them, emergency systems were trying to restart the gravity generators, but the damage was spreading through the ship's systems like a virus. Power conduits were overloading, computer cores were shutting down. The ship that was supposed to lead the invasion of human space was dying, and across the galaxy, on every human world, people had watched their captured soldier survive impossible gravity and turn the aliens' ultimate weapon against them. The message was clear: humans could not be broken by force. They could only be made stronger. The detention section was in chaos. Emergency lights flashed red as gravity shifted wildly throughout the corridors. In some areas, Jinho and his companions floated in zero gravity. In others, they had to crawl as forces up to 8G pressed them down, but they kept moving forward. "There!" Sujin pointed down a corridor. "Other prisoners!" A dozen humans were trapped in cells with malfunctioning gravity systems. Some were floating helplessly in zero-G. Others were pinned to the floor by crushing forces. Jinho and his team worked quickly to free them, using emergency manual overrides that the Vorlak guards couldn't reach in their heavy suits. "Who are you people?" asked one of the freed prisoners, a woman in a pilot's uniform. "Rescued colonists from New Seoul, New Tokyo, and Mars Station," Taemin explained as he helped people out of their cells. "The Vorlak have been capturing humans for weeks. As they moved through the ship, they found more evidence of the aliens' plans. Holding areas designed for thousands of prisoners, maps showing human colony locations, computer files with detailed invasion plans. They weren't just studying us, Jinho realized. They were preparing for a full-scale attack on human space. "How many ships do they have?" asked Sujin. Before anyone could answer, the ship's communication system activated. War Marshal Thexmore's voice echoed through the corridors, distorted by static from the failing systems. "All crew, this is the War Marshal. The gravity failures are spreading through the fleet. Prepare for emergency evacuation. Activate self-destruct sequence rather than allow humans to capture our technology." Jinho felt a chill. If Thexmore destroyed the ship, all the human prisoners would die with it. And more importantly, Earth would never learn about the Vorlak invasion plans. "We need to reach the bridge," he told the group. "Stop the self-destruct and take control of this ship." "That's impossible," said one of the freed prisoners. "There are hundreds of aliens on this ship, and we don't have any weapons." "Yes, we do," Jinho replied. He gestured to the chaos around them. "Their own gravity system. They can't move in these conditions, but we can." It was true. The Vorlak, dependent on their mechanical suits, were helpless when the suits malfunctioned in shifting gravity, but the humans, now adapted to high-G conditions, could function where the aliens couldn't. They fought their way through the ship, level by level. In corridors with normal gravity, they moved quickly and quietly. In zero-G sections, they used their experience from Earth's space training programs. In high-gravity areas, they used their new strength to push forward while Vorlak Guards lay trapped under their own equipment. The battle was unlike anything in military history. Combat zones shifted constantly as gravity fields fluctuated. Enemies who were dangerous in one room became helpless in the next. The humans learned to use the changing conditions as weapons, leading pursuing aliens into high-gravity zones where their suits would fail. "Bridge is 2 levels up," reported one of the rescued prisoners, a merchant captain who knew the ship's layout from being interrogated there. But as they climbed through the ship, they encountered organized resistance. Groups of Vorlak had managed to reach areas with stable gravity and working equipment. These aliens were still dangerous. The first real fight happened in the ship's main corridor. 20 Vorlak soldiers in full combat armor were waiting for them. The corridor had normal gravity, which meant the aliens could move and fight properly. "We can't win against armed soldiers," whispered Sujin. But Jinho had an idea. He had been studying the ship's systems during his weeks of imprisonment. "The gravity generators for this section are controlled from that panel," he said, pointing to a wall-mounted device. "If someone can reach it—" "I'll go," volunteered Taman. "I'm the smallest. I can crawl along the wall and stay out of their line of fire." While the merchant captain made his dangerous crawl toward the control panel, the rest of the humans kept the Vorlak soldiers distracted. They threw pieces of debris, shouted from different positions, and generally made as much noise as possible. When Taman reached the control panel, he followed Jinho's instructions to overload the section's gravity generators. The effect was immediate. The corridor's gravity jumped to 6G, then 8G, then fluctuated wildly. The Vorlak soldiers, caught in their heavy combat armor in the shifting gravity field, crashed to the floor. Their equipment, designed for stable conditions, couldn't compensate for the rapid changes. They lay helpless as the humans walked past them. "This is actually working," said Sujin in amazement. They continued toward the bridge, gathering more freed prisoners and disabling Vorlak resistance. Word spread through the ship that the humans were not just escaping, but taking control. Meanwhile, something else was happening in space around the Vorlak dreadnought. Admiral Kim Daeho's rescue fleet had finally arrived. Earth's 3 experimental gravity drive ships dropped out of hyperspace just as the alien ship's systems were failing. The Admiral watched on his main screen as the massive Vorlak vessel shuddered and sparked, clearly in distress. "What happened to them?" asked Dr. Park Mina, who had insisted on coming with the rescue mission. "I don't know," replied the Admiral. "But whatever it is, it's our chance. All ships, prepare for boarding operations." Choi Woo-jin, monitoring the alien ship's energy signatures, shook his head in amazement. "Sir, their gravity generators are completely out of control. Energy readings are off the scale. It's like their own weapons are tearing the ship apart from the inside." Inside the alien ship, Jinho's group had reached the final approach to the bridge, but they found their way blocked by Chief Researcher Vexatal and his remaining security team. The Vorlak scientist was not wearing a mechanical suit like the others. Instead, he carried a small device that created a personal gravity field around him. This allowed him to move freely even when the ship's systems were malfunctioning. "You have destroyed months of research," Vextal said angrily. "Do you realize what you have done? Your species could have been valuable allies to the Empire. Now you have doomed your entire race." "I don't think so," Jinho replied. "I think we've just shown you that humans are not as easy to conquer as you thought." "Your resistance is meaningless," the scientist continued. "This is only one ship. The Vorlak Empire has thousands of vessels, millions of soldiers. You cannot defeat us all." "Maybe not," Jinho agreed. "But we don't have to defeat you all. We just have to survive long enough to learn from you. And thanks to your experiments, we've learned a lot." Vextal raised his device, preparing to crush the humans with a focused gravity beam. But before he could activate it, the ship shuddered as something large docked with its hull. "This is Admiral Kim Daeho of the Earth Defense Corps," came a voice over the ship's communication system. We are boarding this vessel to rescue our people. Any alien personnel who surrender will not be harmed. The sound of human voices over the alien ship's speakers had an amazing effect on both sides. The rescued prisoners cheered and found new strength. The remaining Vorlak seemed to lose their will to fight. Vextal made one last desperate attempt to complete his mission. He activated his gravity device at maximum power, trying to create a localized field that would crush all the humans at once. But he had made the same mistake as all the other Vorlak. He didn't understand that the weeks of torture had changed Jinho into something beyond normal human capabilities. When the crushing force hit him, Jinho didn't fall. Instead, he stepped forward. "You want to see what humans can really do?" he asked the terrified scientist. "You want to find our breaking point?" Jinho grabbed the gravity device from Vextal's hands and turned it up to maximum power. Then he held it against his own chest. The energy field should have crushed him instantly. Instead, it seemed to make him stronger. His body, pushed beyond all possible limits, had adapted to forces that defied physics. "This is what you never understood," Jinho told the cowering alien. "Humans don't break. We evolve." Behind him, Admiral Kim Dae-ho and his boarding teams arrived on the bridge. Earth's soldiers, seeing their captured comrade not only alive, but standing in a gravity field that should have killed him, felt a surge of pride and determination. The rescue mission had become something more. It had become proof that humanity could not only survive alien threats, but overcome them. The Vorlak ship's bridge was a scene of chaos. Sparks flew from overloaded control panels. Emergency alarms screamed. The ship's massive gravity generators, pushed beyond their design limits, were creating dangerous distortions in space itself. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stared in amazement at Captain Jinho, who was standing calmly in a gravity field that should have crushed him to dust. Around them, Vorlak crew members lay helpless in their malfunctioning suits. "Captain, are you all right?" the Admiral asked. "I'm better than all right," Jinho replied. "I'm exactly where I need to be." Dr. Park Mina ran forward with her medical scanner. The readings made no sense. Jinho's bone density was 3 times normal human levels. His muscle mass had increased by 40%. His entire body had been transformed by the weeks of gravity torture. "This is incredible," she whispered. "Your cellular structure has completely adapted. You've become something new." But their conversation was interrupted by a new crisis. "Engineer," Choi Woojin shouted from one of the alien control panels. "The gravity generators are going critical. The energy feedback is creating spatial distortions. If this continues, it could collapse into a black hole." Chief Researcher Vextal, still cowering on the floor, looked up with wild eyes. "Yes!" he screamed. "If I cannot study you, then I will destroy you, and your rescue fleet with you." The alien scientist crawled to an emergency control panel and began entering commands. "Maximum power to all gravity generators. Create a singularity. Crush everything." Alarms began blaring even louder. Through the bridge windows, they could see space itself beginning to bend and twist. The rescue fleet's ships were being pulled toward the growing gravitational distortion. "We need to evacuate immediately," Admiral Kim Dae-ho ordered. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." But Jinho didn't move toward the exit. Instead, he walked calmly to the main gravity control console. "No," he said quietly. "We're not running." "Captain, that's an order," the Admiral shouted. "With respect, sir," Jinho replied. "I've learned something important during my time here. Something that could save not just our rescue fleet, but all of human space." Dr. Park Mina looked at her scanner readings again. "His bioelectric field is fluctuating in sync with the gravity generators," she said in amazement. "It's like his body is resonating with the distortion." Jinho nodded. "The gravity torture changed me in ways none of us expected. My body doesn't just resist extreme forces anymore, it channels them. Vextal heard this from where he lay on the floor. Impossible! No organic being can control gravitational forces directly. You're right, Jinho said. No ordinary organic being can. But I'm not ordinary anymore, thanks to your experiments. He turned to the gravity control panel and began adjusting the settings. Instead of trying to shut down the overloaded generators, he was increasing their power even further. What are you doing? Asked Choi Woo-jin in horror. Something that should be impossible, Jinho replied. Vextal, you wanted to find my breaking point. You wanted to see what happens when you push human capabilities to their absolute limit. The gravity readings on the control panel were climbing to levels that had never been tested. 15G, 20G, 25G, you're going to kill us all, Vextal screamed. No, Jinho said calmly. I'm going to show you what humans are really capable of. Triple the current power. Triple? Everyone shouted at once, but Jinho was already entering the commands. The gravity generators, pushed far beyond any safe operating parameters, began creating forces that bent reality itself. Space around the ship twisted into impossible shapes. The rescue fleet's instruments went wild as gravitational waves stronger than those from colliding stars washed over them. At the center of it all, Captain Lee Jinho stood perfectly still. The crushing force that should have collapsed him into a point of infinite density instead seemed to flow through him. His body, changed by weeks of adaptation, had become a focal point for the gravitational energy. Instead of being destroyed by forces beyond imagination, he was controlling them. The effect spread outward from where he stood. The chaotic gravity fields that had been tearing the ship apart began to stabilize. The dangerous spatial distortions started to collapse. The energy that had been building toward a catastrophic singularity was being channeled and controlled. Vextal watched in complete shock as his instruments showed the impossible. A single organic being was not only surviving gravitational forces that would crush planets, but actually directing those forces with precision. How? The alien scientist whispered. You made a fundamental error, Jinho explained, his voice calm despite the cosmic forces swirling around him. You assumed that extreme gravity was a weapon to destroy organic life, but life adapts. Life finds a way to not just survive, but to use any condition as an advantage. The gravity fields continued to stabilize under Jinho's control. Throughout the Vorlak ship, the wild fluctuations that had trapped the alien crew were smoothing out. But instead of returning to normal levels, the gravity was settling at precisely the levels that would disable Vorlak equipment while allowing humans to function. Every Vorlak soldier on this ship is now helpless, Jinho continued. Their suits can't function in these gravity fields, but every human can move freely. Admiral Kim Daeho realized what was happening. You're not just controlling the gravity on this ship. You're affecting the entire Vorlak fleet. Through the bridge windows, they could see the other alien vessels in the distance. One by one, their lights were going out as their gravity-dependent systems failed. The invasion fleet that had been preparing to attack human colonies was being disabled by the very weapon they had used to conquer 17 star systems. War Marshal Thexmore, still trapped in his malfunctioning suit, managed to speak. Impossible. Our technology is superior. We are the masters of gravity. You were the masters of artificial gravity, Jinho corrected him. But you never learned to live with it. Humans did. We had to. Earth's gravity shaped us for millions of years. Your experiments just reminded my body of what it was always capable of. Dr. Park Mina was frantically taking readings. The genetic changes in his cells are spreading, she reported. His modified DNA is somehow broadcasting quantum information that other humans can absorb. The rescued prisoners are beginning to show similar adaptations. It was true. Throughout the ship, the humans who had been tortured by gravity experiments were finding new strength. Their bodies were changing, adapting, becoming something beyond ordinary human capabilities. "This is what you never understood about humans," Jinho told the defeated aliens. "We don't just survive challenges, we use them to become stronger. Every pressure you put on us, every obstacle you place in our way, just makes us more capable of overcoming the next challenge." Engineer Choi Woo-jin was studying the alien technology with amazement. "Sir, if we can understand how this gravity control works, we could revolutionize space travel, defense systems, everything." "More than that," Admiral Kim Dae-ho said. "We can make sure no other species ever tries to enslave humanity." As the Vorlak fleet drifted powerless in space, their crews trapped by their own gravity-dependent technology, Captain Lee Jinho finally stepped away from the control panel. The cosmic forces that had been flowing through him settled into stable patterns throughout the alien ships. "What happens now?" asked Kong Sujin, who had helped lead the escape from the detention levels. Jinho looked out at the disabled alien fleet, then at the human rescue ships that were now moving freely through. "Gravitational fields that should have crushed them. Now we go home," he said, "and we prepare humanity for what's really out there in the galaxy." The Vorlak conquered 17 star systems because they had weapons that other species couldn't resist. But they made one mistake. "What's that?" asked Yoon Taemin. Jinho smiled. "They assumed humans would be like every other species they'd encountered. They tried to break us with force, not understanding that force is what made humans strong in the first place." 3 months later, back on Earth, the story of Captain Lee Jinho had spread throughout human space. The man who had asked for triple gravity when the aliens tried to break him had become a symbol of human resilience. Dr. Park Mina had established a new training program based on his genetic adaptations. Soldiers across the Earth Defense Corps were learning to function in extreme gravity conditions. What had been torture for one man had become strength training for an entire species. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in his office, reading reports from across human space. Colonial militias were being equipped with captured Vorlak gravity technology. New ships were being built that could function in gravitational fields that would crush alien vessels. "The Vorlak Empire has sent diplomatic messages," his aide reported. "They want to negotiate a treaty." The admiral smiled. "Tell them they can negotiate with Captain Jinho. I think he's earned the right to speak for humanity." In a high-gravity training facility, Jinho was teaching a new class of students, young men and women who would never know the fear of being helpless against enemies with superior technology. "Remember," he told them as they exercised under crushing forces that would have killed ordinary humans, "there is no such thing as an obstacle that humans cannot overcome. Every challenge is just an opportunity to become stronger."